right.
And this is a reminder, we will be posting this recording to YouTube after the meeting.
Great. Looks like, yep, we do have quorum. So I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order for the Salem Kaiser Area Transportation Study. It is Tuesday, April 26, 2022. And we will go through our roll call, make sure we got everybody here. So let's go ahead and start with Turner. Steve, are you on?
Steve Horning, present.
Okay. Salem Kaiser Transit.
Sadie Carney, present.
Hi, Sadie. Polk County.
Lyle Morthorst, present.
Hi, Lyle. Marion County. Salem.
Trevor Phillips here.
Hi, Trevor. And I'm here for Kaiser. ODOT.
Anna Henson, present.
Hi, Anna.
Hi.
And Salem Kaiser Schools.
Maria Hinojos Presi, present.
Hi, Maria. Okay. All right, I think that's everybody. The first order of business is approval of the policy committee minutes from March 22nd. Were there any additions or corrections noted by anybody?
I had one. Let me find it. I flagged it. Here we go. Oh, on page, sorry, I'm having trouble viewing both these things side by side. Page 6, where it says Director Carney noted it's difficult to understand greenhouse gas benefits without also understanding land uses. It was in specific land use, zoning, and population density. So if we could just make that update. And I think Chair Clark had a response to that, though I can't remember specifically what it was. I don't see it in here. I don't know if it's important or not.
Okay, so the change would be understand land uses. You want
You
to
could
add
say land use is zoned and population density.
zones and population. Okay, I don't remember what my response was. But it probably had something to do with the, oh, there's the kind of the rest of it. I shouldn't look at a project in vacuum without looking at nearby land uses or future zoning. But yeah, population density was not mentioned there. Okay. Any other additions or corrections? Okay, motion to approve as amended.
Also,
So moved.
I'm gonna give that one to Sadie. Second to Lyle. All right, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, signify by saying no. Turn on my camera light here. There we go. Hearing no objection, motion passes unanimously. Okay, public comment this time is provided for members of the public to address the policy committee. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address the policy committee today? Just either hand up or say hey.
Hi.
Okay, Nick Forty from West Salem Neighborhood Association. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Clark. My name is Nick Forty. I'm the Transportation Infrastructure Chair for the West Salem Neighborhood Association. So I'd like to address item E, the D Street to Union Street project that's on your agenda for today. And I just want to start out with, while I'm the Transportation Chair for the West Salem Neighborhood Association, we recognize that this project is not in our neighborhood association. So we want to be a little bit cautious, but we do want to emphasize the importance of what we see as this project, because it has two very important aspects that would help us in West Salem, one of which is to provide what we see as some improved overhead signing. So we think that's very important to help direct traffic. On the other part, which we're a little less clear on, which we're looking for some clarification, is that those potential improvements to making accessibility for pedestrians and bicyclists, because as we brought up before, we think it's really important to improve access from West Salem to the downtown through the Union Street Bridge. And we think there's lots of opportunities. We're not necessarily clear what this project does to enhance that pedestrian and bicyclist connectivity. So to the extent that that project can be changed, or maybe just some clarification on what's going on there, would be beneficial from our perspective. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And we can have that as part of our discussion when we get to item E. So we do it all at the same time. So I've just made a note on that. Anyone else would like to offer public comment today? All right. Let's go to the next question, which is future policy committee meetings, hybrid or virtual, lions and tigers and bears. Oh my. Mike?
Yeah, so we've set up cameras and TV screens, computers in the COG conference room, so we're try to start hosting hybrid meetings where you can join by Zoom, but you can also be in the room. Now, I was just in a meeting yesterday, a hybrid meeting where we had some staff in a room, and it works fine. The audio is good. The video cameras have some limitations about how much of the room they can see. So you may not be able to see everyone in the room, depending on how the tables are set up. So at the last MWAC meeting, the group was kind of divided about meeting in person versus meeting in Zoom, but everyone kind of liked the idea of a hybrid. So I think the next MWAC meeting, we're going to try a hybrid. And so the question now comes to the policy committee as well. Do you want to continue to meet in Zoom? Do you want to meet in person, or do you want to have a hybrid meeting where some people can join either way?
Well, I'm going to lead off. I love hybrid. Give everybody flexibility, because some of us are working and having a really hard time carving out the extra time for travel. So that would be me. So that's where I'm going to land. Other opinions?
I love the
In-person.
hybrid also. A hybrid seems to work good for everybody. Those who like to meet in person have that ability. And when you can't make it, it is really nice to have the Zoom available. So it's for the tighter schedules.
I agree with that. This is Anna.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree too. I think it gives greater access to people and allows more people to participate, which is always going to be a benefit in my book. So I'm hybrid 100%, even if I show up in person.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
hybrid. I agree. It will be difficult to attend all of these if it's not. For me.
Okay. Can I
Yeah.
get a sense of how many of the policy committee members may attend in person? You know, they don't have to promise me, but just so we have an idea of how to set the room up. If we have our meeting, next meeting in May, are you likely to attend in person? Can I see raise of hands of people who probably would attend in person?
And it depends, but it would be my preference.
Okay, so Sadie Carney, Lyle Mordhorst and Kathy, 3.
And Anna?
Yeah,
I think
and
Anna.
Anna, 4. Okay, so
it depends on the week.
depends on the week. So,
Mhm.
all right, we'll prepare
Big-
for, half to 2/3 of people showing up in person, just so we could set up the room sufficiently.
Big in-person party, Mike. Get ready.
All right, it'll be nice to see you. We'll actually have to
Look at Karen.
drag out the coffee maker this time. So,
Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm
thank you,
making note of
everyone.
my calendar.
Oh, and
to-
while I have the floor, Sarah Duncan joined us. And Sarah, I know you tried joining like multiple times, and I don't know what the problem was with Zoom, but I'm glad you were able to finally connect.
No, you guys are fine. I'm just in a completely new setup and still trying to figure out how to make it work. So
Okay. I think we were saying we admitted you like 8 times, something like that.
oh, I only tried to join twice, so that's
Oh.
interesting. Sorry about that.
That's odd. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
There is a
Sarah.
technology. But yeah, I like the ability for people to be able to listen and participate as well as be in person for that interaction. So, all right. We will enter hybrid world. Fabulous. Let's go on then to item E, which is the SCATS fiscal year 21-24 tip amendment. Karen.
Yes, I better unmute. So I am going to share my screen here. So that's what I'm trying to do real quickly. So today before us, we have an amendment that is at the request of ODOT. This is a project, project key number 22572. It is the Oregon East Business D Street, Union Street to, well, I think it's now Market Street, D Street to Union Street project. And it is a project that was selected through the ARTS process, the All Roads Transportation Safety program, for inclusion in the 2021-2024 STIP when it was adopted in 2020. And so I would really just like to kind of show, I'm going to let Anna lead this, but the purpose of this amendment is actually to extend the project limits. And you can see on the map on the right, the blue circles show the mileposts that were included in the STIP originally, and the red ones are showing where the proposed project limits are. And Anna will probably tell you that this is actually more of a correction than anything, but because it is including roads that were not originally included in the project description, that's why it is considered a full amendment. But this is also an opportunity to for the policy committee to see what this project is. So Anna, if you'd like to talk a little bit about the project itself, that would be helpful.
Yes, thank you, Karen. You're correct that this is really, the STIP amendment is to correctly identify the project limits. And we have with us today Kumar Resnasamy, who is our project manager for this project at ODOT, and he's going to help clarify some points. But just high level, the purpose of this project is to enhance and upgrade overhead guides and lane use signing, and install some bike lanes. And one of them will be a dual pathway, which is a little bit different than we've seen in Salem. And so Kumar can talk a little bit more about that. And then we're adding, well, it'll include some work on Liberty and Front Street as well. Kumar, do you want to join us and add anything that I left out?
Yeah, sure, Anna. So yeah, the original intent of the project, or as to what was originally scoped in the previous scoping rounds, is actually included up to Market Street. And the purpose of this project generally is a safety-driven project. It's to address some previous crash history through this corridor. A lot of it has to do with cars trying to figure out which lane they need to get in to get towards, I guess, to align themselves with the right way they're going across Center Street Bridge. And I think what originally, from what was originally coded as D Street to Union Street, there's a little bit of advance warning sign. So some of the sign improvements include a new sign bridge, kind of similar to what you see across Division and Commercial Street at the moment, kind of on that bend. It will be a more modern sign, or I guess a more modern structure compared to that one. But essentially the project is to better align motorists so they know which lane they're in moving on to Center Street Bridge. And to address Nick Forty's question, what I'd like to do is I can share my screen and I can kind of detail a little bit about the bicycle pedestrian improvements along that section. So I'm just gonna-
Give me just a
Oh.
second. We've got to add you as a co-host.
All right.
I got to find you though.
You
Can
have
I just to-
I got it. I got
Okay.
it.
Yeah, okay, you can share.
Okay. Okay, can everyone see my screen? Like just if someone can stick their thumb up, yep, can see you live.
Yes,
Yes.
All right.
yeah.
So there's two types of cycles that would use this facility. You know, you've got your hardcore cyclists in Lycra. So typically, and what they'd probably do originally is just continue along Commercial Street, or what's known as Front Street. And then to integrate with the city's facilities, and we've been working with the city to work through this solution. You know, families would probably cross here, cross onto this, I guess, pedestrian aisle, and then move across here. So the green line indicates cyclists, pedestrians who are going in the southbound direction. Originally, we had planned to do some bicycle improvements where Union Gospel Mission is, which is just north of here. But as part of their development of the project, they actually built, or as part of the, I guess, the stipulations of their development, they completed a bicycle pathway, which we will then connect up to. So that's part of the original scoping, which we don't have to do now. So in order to connect up to that facility, you know, cyclists would move south and then move across here. And again, the city has also done some improvements north of here as part of the police facility rebuilt there. And there's bike-specific lanes here. So the team, we looked at doing some cycle paths, which would either go on this side of the road or coming back over this side. And we looked at the options and we thought that we could provide a two-way facility through a widened sidewalk or a shared use path, which would then allow cyclists moving, I guess, north-south along this corridor to then connect up to the Union Street bike path, which I think would then connect up to that West Salem area, which then links up to that bridge. Similarly, I know the city is working on a project here to create a Union Street family-friendly bike path, which involves, I guess, a bit of a, I don't know if it's the road diets of the word, but they're reconfiguring Union Street to make it more cycle-friendly. So this project will link up existing cycleways and also provide a widened path for pedestrians to use. Does anyone have any questions about the proposed design or alignment, or just general questions about the project?
Looks like Sadie does.
Surprise. Thank you, Chair Clark. So a couple questions, and I'll start here on the south end, and then maybe we can work our way back north. So one of the things that's really amazing, thank you, the city of Salem, I think, though maybe ODOT too, about this intersection and getting access to the Union Street Ped Bridge and Riverfront Park is that it's got a light that can sort of see you as a cyclist.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I'm a cyclist, I usually have a trailer behind me that has 2 kids in it. And so I'm a little bit longer than a normal bike. And so I'm wondering, how would that light see me if I was queued up on this sidewalk corner? And how would it know to say, okay, bicycle, I see you there, go?
So I guess your question centered about, I guess, once you hit this corner, how will it know for you to then move? Look, I don't have the answer to that question. I can talk to the team and then get back to you regarding that. So unfortunately, I don't have that answer, but I can take it away and get back to you.
Okay, yeah, because it seems like a really nice addition to the overall bicycle sort of facilities in that area. But if you can't get across the street there because the sensor never triggers and sees that you're there,
Yeah.
then it is less useful. And kind of sort of similar down in this space. And I think this is beyond the scope of this project, but maybe it's a very easy fix. The signal timing for crossing front when you haven't pressed the button. So not up here, but down there on the same Union, getting
Oh,
across to
yeah,
the Ped
yeah.
Bridge. If you
Yeah.
haven't pressed what I call the bag button to
Mhm.
get the little blue walking man to go across the street, then the signal is very short. And if you are pulling 100 pounds of children in a trailer on a bike, even if you're a pretty confident cyclist like myself, it's hard to get across all of those lanes in the signal time that is allotted. And so you either have to get off your bike and lean way over so that you can get to the pedestrian button from
Yeah.
the bike lane, or you have to pull all the way off. But the sidewalk has a lot of like movie aroundy, any outy parts in that section where I can't navigate a trailer successfully. So if we could improve that in terms of safety, allowing people adequate time to get across without having to depress the walk signal, that would be, I think, a good improvement.
So essentially like a way for cyclists to, I guess, or maybe some sort of sensor activation without pushing the button.
That would be perfect, or just lengthen the signal, though I am sure there are reasons ODOT would be hesitant to do that. But I see Anna has her hand up, so I'm interested to see what she has to say.
Well, I was just gonna comment that I don't know if it's an ODOT controlled signal or a City of Salem controlled signal. So, Kumar, do you know the answer to that just off the top of your head?
Julie's on.
I've got-
You can answer.
Oh,
Julie
Julie
knows.
Boyne.
Julie, you're up.
Yeah, hi. Yes, it is controlled. The signal is controlled by the City of Salem. And I made a note to talk to our traffic signal engineers about the possibility of lengthening that interval. I don't know the answer, but I will definitely check in with them and let you know, Sadie.
Thanks, Julie.
Thank you.
I
And
agree
then-
with Sadie. There's a
Oh,
lot
yeah.
of times I see people, they only get halfway across and they're sitting on the median waiting to be able to finish. So that would be awesome. Go ahead.
It's almost as bad as being stuck on the little cross thing when a train goes by behind you.
Oh,
That's worse. Let's be clear, that's worse. That's a conversation for a different meeting. So further north in this map, just going back to that really weird intersection at Commercial and Division, and it sort of splits off to Front. Is there any way to prevent getting stuck on this island? See your little like 3-pedal right there. Yeah, that is just not a comfortable spot to wait with kids or even by yourself when there's traffic. And when people get a green light coming south, they really are just tempted to treat it like they're still on I-5. And so I don't know if there's a way to ease the crossing for people so that they can do it all in one step. Like I just don't know, but that is a very uncomfortable spot to sit and wait, especially if you're kind of like, I've got 2 little people on bikes, I've got a trailer on my bike, and cars are going by at 45 miles an hour.
Yeah, no, that's a genuine concern, and one of the things we're looking at in this on this corner here is to see if there's a possibility of maybe shifting this turn lane further south, by maybe acquiring a little bit of right of way to widen this out to make it more comfortable for both pedestrians and cyclists. And something we discussed, and we haven't talked to it with the city themselves, but the possibility of maybe even closing this lane. But again, we haven't talked to the city. We've got we talked to them about this option, but we've also looking at, you know, on this map here, it shows some parking here. And right now, the parking on both sides is a little bit constrained by this, I guess, less than optimal parking widths. And so one of the issues we're looking at is maybe possibly maybe removing this parking to widen this out so we don't have doors going into traffic.
Thank you. And then final question, I think that what was indicated on the drawing that we looked at earlier was a sign bridge, but when I first saw it, I was very hopeful that you were adding an additional pedestrian crossing a little further north on Commercial, kind of like, I guess it's north of the UGM homeless facility and maybe just north of on that stretch there. I just saw like some red hatch marks going across in the illustration that was included.
I think the red hash marks indicate the sign bridge, but there's no planned crossing at that location.
Yeah, that's such a dangerous crossing, and it's so hard. You know, like if I want to walk to the grocery outlet,
yeah,
my options are limited. And you know, we've got a lot of people staying overnight and maybe leaving during the day from the UGM, and there's not a real safe way to get across there. So something to break that up, I don't think would be bad, especially in terms of its potential for traffic calming if it was like one of those little blinky light numbers. But you're putting in a sign bridge,
Yeah.
maybe our blinky light could hang on the sign bridge.
I'm
Yeah.
happy to pass the feedback onto the team and see what they say, or if there's a crash history that maybe supports a crossing at that location.
Super, thank you.
Trevor?
Yeah, this is more of a comment than a question. I mean, this is the location where we had the tragedy of the 4 people that died by the drunk driver. Is that correct?
No,
Right.
it's, see where the little circly thing is on the ODOT right of way by the rail? That's where that happened.
Okay. So
Yeah,
would
it's not
these
a-
improvements wouldn't touch that then?
Yeah, we're not planning on changing anything other than maybe some bicycle lane markings. I think there's
Okay.
already bicycle lane markings on the road there. So it'd just be to replace or to re-maintain what's existing, but no physical changes to lane layouts.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Just a quick
Right.
question about the width of bicycle lanes.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Were you wanting to know what the width was?
Was, is, will be?
I don't have that information with me, but I can go back and talk to my designer and get that for you later.
Okay, thank you. Because 4 feet feels pretty narrow when cars are traveling at the speed they like to travel in that area.
4 feet's narrow, period.
Is it,
Agreed, Chair Clark.
maybe you can just post your email address in the chat box, and then I can just send you an email after, or maybe I can just email Karen and she can pass the information on.
Yes, please email me and I'll make sure that the entire policy committee gets the answers.
Sure, can do. All right, so just to recap, I'll be getting lane information or bicycle lane width information, and also crossing activation information at this corner here. Yeah. All right, if there's nothing else, I'll hand it back to Karen.
And the potential for a pedestrian crossing with
Yep.
a caution signalization to calm traffic and allow people safe passage across Commercial.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting, but that's an absolutely, from my point of view, as a terrifying thought. But I know that a traffic analysis would tell whether that would be how workable that would be. Yeah,
Yeah, as traffic engineer, I'd be a little leery of putting a crossing where everybody is paying attention to the sign, trying to figure out where they're going to go, and then you have a crossing there. I think that would be too much information, but I will let the experts address that, but that would be my initial thought on that.
right. And if we've got both ways going, I know that that area is not well designed for pedestrian or any kind of crossing for that matter, but there's a reason it got closed off for this facility to go through. But making the other section where we talked about with that zigzag, maybe more user-friendly, might be an answer as well. I understand the gap in between. We had the same problem along the stretch of River Road. But that particular space, watching driver behavior, just send up every red alert in the back of my head. But I will leave it to the engineers to look at the feasibility. That said, we need a resolution, a motion to approve resolution 22-9, updating the project location information for project key number 22572, Oregon 99 eastbound, D Street to Union Street.
So moved.
Moved by Lyle.
Phillips.
Trevor
Oh, I'm sorry.
Phillips, yeah.
Sorry. Moved by Trevor Phillips. Second.
Wow, a second.
Okay, Lyle second. All right. Any further discussion? Anna? No?
No, sorry. I just want to thank Kumar for coming and helping us walk through that. And sorry, I should have waited till after the vote.
All right. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed signify by saying no. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much, Kumar. I agree. That was very helpful to have you and Karen. I'm Karen. So I'm looking at Karen Odenthal on the picture. Julie.
Thanks for having me.
Julie.
I just want to make sure that, Nick, did that answer your questions?
You still there?
He
I don't
says
know.
he's still on, but he's still muted. So,
Okay.
Yes, sorry. Yes, it did. Thank you. Thank you very much. I just wanted to get a better understanding. So actually having the ODOT folks, Kumar, walk through that thing helped explain it to me. It just wasn't clear in the preceding material. So thank you for doing that.
Well, that was why I really asked Kumar to be there, because I knew this was going to be, it's very hard to describe it, what was
Yeah.
happening. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Kumar. Good job.
all right. Let's go on then to item F, which is the adoption of the SCATS fiscal year 22-23 UPWP. Mike.
Yeah, Karen, can you put the PowerPoint up? Thank you. So this is toward the end of our process of developing this document. Just to remind you of what we've done so far, back in November, we reviewed a staff list of the major activities for the planning work program, which, just to remind you, the time period is July of this summer to June 2023. So we went over the major activities. Then we produced a draft of the full document for review. That draft, which you essentially said, go ahead and continue working on that. We sent that to ODOT, Federal Highway, Federal Transit for their comments, and we met with them in February. They didn't have that many comments, and we made some revisions to address their comments. So now it's come back to you in its final draft form, with all the changes, with the financial tables, with all the appendices. Can you give me the next slide, please? So since we've already kind of been through the planning work, I want to talk a little bit about what's in the rest of the document. The first two bullets are, the main part of it describes the planning work we're going to be doing the upcoming year with the plan, the tip, and studies, and so on and so forth. And there is a summary work program budget. What many of you haven't seen, because you're still fairly new to this committee, is some of the appendices, which includes in Appendix A, the 1987 cooperative agreement that set up the MPO, and who are the members, including the voting procedures on especially the long range plan and the TIP, which are the two major documents where we require a unanimous vote. It also sets up the number of voting members per jurisdictions. So we have one voting member per jurisdiction, and of course the list of jurisdictions. In 2003, we amended the cooperative agreement to add Turner when the MPO expanded. Appendix B and C have to do with federal highway and its certification of our planning program, both federal highway and federal transit. So that was last done in 2021. They review our program every 4 years. So the letter from USDOT was a finding that our program substantially met the federal regulations, which is important. But there were a number of corrective actions that they thought we needed to do to make it more aligned with the intent of the regulations, in addition to some recommendations and commendations. So all that's laid out in appendices B and C. You'll hear us talk about these corrective actions, because when we update our plan and we update our TIP, we are responding to those corrective actions by federal highway and federal transit. In Appendix D is a nice table that compares Title VI and environmental justice. So Title VI is like the federal statute having to do with non-discrimination. Environmental justice is a presidential order from 1994, I think it was. I forget exactly the date, during President Clinton's administration. And environmental justice talks about how we have to look at our federal projects through an equity lens, essentially. Have to consider lower minority populations and lower income households as part of our planning and practices. And this wasn't just for transportation, it was kind of nationwide. All federal agencies had to have environmental justice as part of their practices. So that appendix has a nice summary of both of those, Title VI and environmental justice, and how they kind of compare, because they're often thought of together, and while they are very related, they are somewhat different as well. And finally, Appendix E, a rather long agreement, which I guess if you are having trouble falling asleep at night, you might want to pull that out, is a long agreement, IGA, of the planning responsibilities and financial sharing of information between ODOT, the MPO, and the Salem Area Mass Transit District. And while I really don't expect you to read it, I can just say that this kind of outlines how we're going to work on various things that are required by federal regulation, including performance-based planning, which you'll hear staff talk about quite a bit. We are in an era where performance-based planning is kind of the framework which the federal regulations are written. We have to do a lot of things to show we're meeting, that we have these performance measures to show we're making progress towards performance measures, whether it's safety, whether it's road conditions, whether it's congestion, et cetera. So those things are laid out in a specific IGA between the state, the MPO, and the transit district. So all those things are there, both things that we've worked on for many years over the years. We'd like to include them in the UPWP, so both it's easy to find, but also it's available for you as a policy committee to reference and get an understanding of the kind of planning requirements we live in. We're not just making it up as we go. We have lots of regulations and agreements and corrective actions that we are following as part of our development of the UPWP. So I'll stop there because I know it's not the most exciting thing to talk about appendices, but I wanted you to know that those important documents are in the UPWP.
I appreciate the thoroughness, and also really helps set the framework in which we are working, that there are areas that with our local jurisdictions that we want to emphasize or are working on, but these as part of the MPO need to fit into that larger framework. So this really helps with that continuity of understanding of what that framework looks like. Sadie, you had a question.
Yeah, and apologize if this information is included in Appendix A. Does that establish the TAC as well and the voting members on the TAC? And if not, how are they determined?
I'd have to bring it back up, and I don't precisely recall. Let me look it up and see here.
Yeah, you can't do a control find because it's a
It's a
it's a
PDF.
scan from 1987.
True.
And then I had a couple questions on the stuff that's included in the plan itself, but maybe we're gonna get to that yet.
Nope. While we look up where the creation and the staffing of the TAC is in this document, and I'm thinking it's under our coordination, but I could be wrong. What's your question within the document itself?
A couple. One is, I think it might be useful in our good long-range planning practice, figure 1 on page 6 of the UPWP, to make mention or reference to public involvement or community engagement. And then,
Hang on.
yeah.
Is that, and I'm looking at Kim a little bit. Is that embedded in these?
Well, part of our, we referenced our public participation for all of our planning activities is in page 12.
Mhm. I'm just saying in that graphic that we have,
Yeah.
I mean, that's what my eyes get drawn to because it's easy to read. So I'm assuming that others that, you know, might be having a look at this would look there too. And I know we do so much of it. And I know that's a big part of the outcomes that we're here to achieve. And so highlighting that in some way, I think would be useful.
Yeah.
The problem is
In the
it's
graphic.
embedded in so many of the steps.
Maybe
Yeah.
it's a circle that has its own label that goes all the way around or something.
Okay.
Anyway, just a thought.
I'll say I grabbed that. We didn't create that graphic. We grabbed it because it was a very good one, we thought. So rather than recreate it. So we're going to have to figure out a creative way to insert or encircle public involvement as part of that whole process. So
Right.
thank you for that challenge.
You're welcome, Mike. You're welcome. And then on page 11, under safety planning, let me see. I was wondering if there were additional assessments we could consider when we're talking about safety other than just crash data. I know that's a really important piece of it. But there are other ways to evaluate safety, such as pedestrian safety, pedestrian facilities, the distance between crossings, like I was just talking about in the last one. And I don't know if crashes has anything to do or a relationship to, you know, injuries. I don't know how many injuries are actually reported.
Is that more embedded in the Transportation Safety Action Plan? from
Yes,
ODOT?
Chair Clark, the answer is yes. So we've made it a focus to have the regional transit safety plan not just look at crashes, although that's going to be an important thing to look at. That's our primary source of data, but also to involve the public to let us know where there are unsafe conditions, where there aren't any crashes, or, you know, let's say someone has some trepidation crossing a street and they just want to let us know there's no crashes there, but they just don't cross that street because it's at sight distance or whatever. So
that's
Yeah,
the RTSAP that's referenced in that paragraph.
Yeah.
And so I think we're on the same page.
Yeah, I think we are too. If it's possible, because it takes me a long time, well, I should spend longer, you know, going through these packets than I do, but it would be a lot easier to kind of answer maybe some of my own questions if we were linking to those documents in the text of the staff reports, so that then I could just say, oh, well, yeah, see, that is what we're talking about. We're already talking about it because it's right here. And then I don't have to go searching for it. That'd be,
well, in this case, we don't have that document yet. This is a plan that's going to be developed as part of the work program. So we have a consultant selected and we are about to start it this spring. But
Well, it says we had one in 2016 and updated it in
Um,
2021.
Are you talking about, I'm not, I thought I was talking about the regional transit.
The
safety action
regional
plan.
transportation, okay.
Oh, that ODOT does
ODOT.
have a transportation safety action plan of their own, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
well, just to the extent, I mean, I see where we were mismatching there, but to
Yeah.
the extent that we are able to kind of link to some of those existing documents rather than require a Google search, that would be really helpful for me.
Okay.
Right.
Yes, my only hesitation is that for our internal documents, we are planning to update our website. Hopefully within the next 6 months to a year, and links will change. So I can promise you in the future, we will try to do that more. I'm a little hesitant to do it right now and have all that work kind of disappear.
Understood, yeah.
Good catch. Okay.
Yeah. But good
And,
questions.
on the
Good
TSAP,
comments.
that might be an easier one to embed in the final document.
Mhm,
And
yeah.
if you have to make any other changes to the document, if you would go onto page, back to page 6, where it says carry out, we split it because we're not talking about carry out like in, Chicken Shack, but carry out as in to accomplish. It's on line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
That was page 6, you said?
page 6.
I found it.
Yeah, it just kind of jumped out at me going, what? Okay, Sadie, you had one more?
Yeah, just a few more catches and then I promise, I think. In the public participation for TIP, MTP and other planning activities on page 12, we had discussed with this group, I think it was a conversation that Ray led, the possibility of having a community advisory committee for our TIP and STIP and MTP updates. Is that something we still are debating, or has that been settled? I didn't see it called out in here, and I didn't know if we had ever answered that question as a policy committee.
It did come up, and I think I remember you bringing that up. I don't think the policy committee made a final decision about whether they wanted to enact a citizen advisory committee. I know the opinions were split.
Right. So that was, I don't remember that being, yeah, we want to move forward with that. I think it was still under discussion. And I think looking at our public participation plan to see where we might enhance some of the public participation, but we all know that getting public comment is extraordinarily difficult for these projects.
Right. I mean, maybe that would be a reason to establish a committee that kind of represents the diversity of our MPO as a whole to try to garner some of that feedback.
Well, part of that is on us as representatives from these different organizations, especially those of us who are elected from government, from like city and county, where we can push it out past transportation oriented groups to our neighborhood associations, to our community at large, which is, I know I do that. I take our packets and I pop them out there so people can see them, or I say, hey, here's the survey, or here's what's going on, and use my social media to pop it out. So we could talk about making that more robust as well. But I think that's going to be a larger conversation on what that would look like and what the deliverable would be for the policy committee.
Well, would we need to add it to the unified work program in order to have it be part of the process?
Not yet. I think that my preference would be to
Yeah.
circle back with a public participation program and see where there's some rational nexus. That'd be my preference, rather than have it be a separate one, because I think there's going to be I think these are hand in glove, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, I didn't include it because I know there was a difference in opinion, and I didn't want to include something if I didn't have a high confidence we were going forward with it.
But we still have time to have that conversation as a group?
Well, I certainly want to just adopt the UTWP. Now, we certainly can, amongst our public participation plan, we can definitely, if the policy committee chose to direct staff to do so, we could, look into having that committee and have that committee. But I should say that I would like staff to come back to you. If the committee says, staff, look into having this committee, I'd like to come back to you with the pluses and minuses of having a committee on a number of things that come to mind. How long do they serve? Do they serve continuously like the TAC, or are they just serving during the development of the RTSP? What's its makeup? How long do they meet? If it's not continuous, do they only meet for 12 months or something? So there's a lot of considerations. There's also just the extra staff time to prepare packets and have meetings. So I'd like to lay that out for the policy committee and then have a discussion about whether you flip the switch and say, yes, go ahead and form it, or no, we don't think you need to.
Right.
Okay. And then I promise I'm almost done. In our modeling and data, is it possible for us, and I don't know if there's a reason we do or don't, but to consider additional data points like population density and socially and economically vulnerable communities, environmental justice data?
Is this a certain page in the document?
Page 12. I'm still on the same page. And I promise I think this is my last page that I marked up in this.
Okay. I'd have to look at that section. We use a lot of data, all the data we can from census, from surveys, to analyze our plan and to eventually do environmental justice analysis and the kind of stuff we were talking about earlier with the criteria. So if it's not specifically listed in there, it doesn't mean we aren't using data that we have available.
And to kind of go with that, the travel demand and the travel model and population forecast, a lot of that uses those data points in putting together those models. So they are bodies of work that help inform those without calling them out specifically, but it's more comprehensive. And I think Kim was going to jump in on that.
That's all I was going to say is, yes, that we have population density, we have employment EJ and more than EJ, but we have transportation disadvantage data that we've pulled together. So it is supportive of sort of the existing work that's done on. We always have, and so we do have them existing sets. They just haven't necessarily been called out in that particular list.
And just to go back to the modeling aspects, it's funny because we were just talking about that this morning in a modeling meeting. It's nice to say we will include all this data in our models. It's another thing to try to include it. And the differences are way apart, so it's not just say include this and make it so. It just doesn't work that way. We have to have models built a certain way, that we have lots of limitations of how rigorous our models can be to that level. So there has to be a lot of practicality when you build models. You can't include everything in the kitchen sink in them. You have to kind of work with what you have. So our model is extremely complicated as it is without even all those other factors trying to be included. So
yeah, to the extent that we were able to highlight the work that is being done to recognize sort of the SVI, the social vulnerability index, and the EJ data that we use in helping make funding decisions through the MPO, I think that's important for people to know and to acknowledge in the plan. And then finally, and this is really a question more, consultation with tribal governments is called out. And if that were to happen and a tribe were to request government to government, would that be this policy committee that was responding to the tribe?
That's a good question. Probably the answer is yes. Just getting back to if we do it, we are required to do it. In fact, one of the corrective actions from Federal Highway was that even though we had a consultation process, they wanted it even more refined than what we had originally done. So the Federal Highway is very big on making sure that the consultation process is sufficient regarding tribal governments, and we are doing all we can to do that coordination. Up to now, they have not had many comments at all about our planning process, but if they did, we would definitely bring it to your attention, and if necessary, take whatever steps we had to.
And last
communicate.
question, I think, I promise, on this piece anyway.
Yeah.
If we were, like, let's say we were doing a big, an overhaul or a lane expansion, and there was like an inadvertent discovery of funerary remains or other sort of cultural items that were potentially tribal, do we have a process for that? And is it local or is it federal?
Oh boy, this is really outside my lane, because that gets into the project development, environmental analysis on specific projects. So that would probably involve the project sponsor and ODOT and others. I don't know how much the MPO would get involved, because we're more of a planning organization.
Okay.
It'd probably be more of the project development staff.
Okay.
So in my experience, because in my other part of my life, when we are doing the scoping of a project and we are looking at, let's say, in my life, a runway rehab or something that's going to go on additional lands, that all has to be part of the environmental assessment, the EA. And you do look at the potential of whether you're going to be getting into lands where there are tribal histories, and then you contact the tribes. There is a process in place for that.
Thanks.
And the consultation covers a little bit of that. So, that's the idea for the tribes to raise any issues that we may not be aware of.
Exactly. Sarah, you had a question?
Yeah, I just have a quick point of clarification. Sadie was asking about under the modeling and data section about additional items, and I kind of feel like the answers were a little contradictory. It was said that many other items are added for modeling, but then also that there's a lot of limitations, so we can't add everything, include like the kitchen sink example.
Right.
I just feel like those two answers are a little bit opposed, and I was hoping for maybe some clarification. And in my personal opinion, would be why having a slightly more expansive list might be important is because we know we can't include all those things. And I was just hoping you could explain that a little better.
Okay, so let me give you a little example. So if we're developing a model, we want to know how many trips are coming from the household. We have some basic information about size of household, number of workers in the household, and income levels. And those factors are used in the model to predict number of trips, trip distances, trip mode, etc. But it's not the kitchen sink. We don't have the whole age component of everyone in the household. We don't know if there's disabilities in the household. Other factors we don't have in the model as part of the algorithm that develops the trips in the model. It's just we don't have the range of data and the analysis ability to create models that have that much complexity. However, once the model has been run, then we can do some analysis based on outside information, like who's impacted by this road going from 10,000 vehicles per day to 20,000 vehicles per day. We can look at the land uses and the population in that area. So that is a post-processing of the analysis results using data like census data. So that's the distinction I'm trying to make. There's things that can go in the model and there's things that we just can't easily fit in the model, but we can later use data to analyze the results of the model to impacted groups, for example. Does that help clarify?
It makes more sense when you've explained it that way.
Yeah,
My understanding was that the document is supposed to provide a little bit of information and transparency. Is there a way that we could maybe include a little section that adds that stipulation, just so that anybody else who maybe didn't have the chance to have it explained has that information? That would be just a little asterisk or something about the way that modeling data is used.
Ooh, let me talk to my staff and see if they have a.
I just know that
idea.
as my basic amount of knowledge, it represents a lot of the population. And I know if I don't understand it, with you sitting right here explaining it to me, somebody else probably would also struggle.
Yeah,
So
modeling,
thank you very much.
Modeling is excessively complex. We have experts that focus on modeling as their career.
Absolutely.
It's very complicated.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Or to reference the area within the document itself, more details on page or section, whatever.
Yeah, maybe we could have a call out box, and
Right.
have a half page or a page of what modeling is, and what it is.
Yeah, or just like a little asterisk to a little appendices about, where additional, modeling data may be used in certain circumstances, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
Just
See what
something
we
like
can
that.
do. It might be a good idea to have an appendix. So Ray, I will work with you on that. Ray
I
Jones.
love a good appendix.
And part of it also is, people have asked for data for things and that data doesn't exist. And sometimes it's important to be clear that there are some ideas going, wouldn't it be nice to know, but you don't have that. Or we don't know, either that data doesn't exist or it is embedded elsewhere. But I think we keep asking the questions, and that's why modeling becomes more and more complex, is because we find more ways to get good information. Lyle, you had your hand up?
Yeah, Sadie was asking about the tribes, and Sadie, I just want you to know that Polk County, I work directly with the Confederate Tribes of Grand Ronde, their public works and our public works director. We work as a team. Anna Henson and ODOT is excellent. So everything happening in Polk County, the tribe is involved in almost every decision. So they are a very big partner and valued partner for us. So works out excellent to have them here.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. It's so important, and just in the work that I do for the state, it can be so difficult at times to engage tribes. So having that relationship and that partnership is just huge. So congratulations.
And the city of Kaiser works closely with both the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde and Confederated Tribes of the Siletz Indians in a similar fashion. So we have the working relationships with their public works and folks. Okay. Last call to adopt the resolution 22-10 to adopt the SCATS fiscal year 2022-2023 Unified Planning Work Program.
Before we get to that, sorry, I was just going to say, I know that Salem does this well. I don't know the details. I'd have to rely on Julie, but I know that the city of Salem also has a relationship. Whenever it's a city done project, it's different if it's a, like a public, site plan, but yeah, there's a relationship there.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay.
Thanks.
So you need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Trevor.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll second it. This is Anna.
Seconded by Anna. And further discussion. Sarah, did you have something to add? I see your hand. Nope. Okay, you're good. All right.
Sorry, I just didn't take it down.
Okay, Sadie, do you have something?
Real quick, there are a few places where I would like to see some further specification, kind of along the lines of what Sarah was pointing out earlier in this conversation, but I won't hold up adoption of the Unified Work Plan as a result, but I'm not sure how we address those things going forward, and I'm not sure what it means if they're not included here, how sort of obligated we are to continue addressing. I don't know how binding this is, I guess, is before I make a decision.
It's not exclusionary, and Ray just put something in the chat with the modeling overview is on the COG website and can link to it, and we'll have the modeling and information for you. And it is not exclusionary, that as in if it's not listed, we don't look at it. Because this is comprehensive, all of the relevant models and data points are required to be included in the modeling that is done in these different areas within the work plan. So it's not exclusive, but inclusive. If it's a good piece that's going to go with it, especially to meet a criterion for a particular study, is going to be included rather than excluded.
Yeah, I'm thinking more about like maybe the Citizen Advisory Committee for the STIP and MTP updates, kind of an explanation of what enhanced environmental justice analysis would be, things like that, that aren't exposed and aren't necessarily included, but if it's not in here, that doesn't mean we can't do it. But my question is, I guess that's my question, is how binding is this? If it's not in our Unified Work Program, are we going to say, well, it's not in the work program, so
if we
missed it
decide
this
as
time.
if we decide as a policy committee that we want to add a citizens advisory, and like Mike said, they can bring back some options for us to discuss, but that's not something that the policy committee said, yes, we want to move forward with that because it is complex and we have to be clear on what the expectations are. And we had not had that conversation to my knowledge. So it's not exclusionary, but it's not ready for prime time in my humble opinion. So I wouldn't want to add it at this point.
Okay. And then I mean, maybe before we make a decision, because there are some things that are fairly specific in here, like public outreach. I'm looking at page 22 MTP that talks about conducting public outreach in early 2023, leading to a public hearing at the SCATS Policy Committee in May 2023. And my question is, would that be a single hearing? Would there be an opportunity for multiple hearings? Could we do one during hours of the day when most people aren't working? Is there any possibility to be flexible or at least one public hearing? That kind of stuff. This is the part where I'm afraid that our work program will bind us to a place of inflexibility. Or could.
I think I can answer that.
Pardon?
I think I can answer that.
Go, Mike.
Here. You know, the UPWP is supposed to be broad to say what are all the things we're working on. It doesn't go into every last detail of a thing we will work on. So of course, we're going to have lots of public participation as part of the TIP and the plan. It doesn't specify every hearing and everything like that. So we will have more details about that, and you can help devise how we are doing that. I wouldn't say that we are, if it's something's not listed specifically to that detail, we can't do it. Of course we can do it. If it's a whole new study, if you said, hey, I want you to do a study on, I don't know, trains going through Salem, that would be something that's not in our UPWP, and either we'd have to do it the following year or potentially amend it. So it's really on a case by case basis. But I try to write it so that it's more encompassing. We have a whole section on interagency coordination. We never know what we're going to be asked for during the year, so we're going to coordinate with our partner agencies on projects without knowing in advance exactly what they're going to be.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
Trevor?
Yeah, I think that Mike's statements are helpful. I plan to vote yes on the motion that we're discussing, but I would like follow-up to get Member Carney's questions answered. I do think that we need to, consider those. At least I would find it helpful to get staff input about the possibility of creating a committee to facilitate more outreach to the community and more public involvement. But I don't think it's ready today. So I would just like to get more information from staff about feasibility, constraints, and potential benefits.
And I would not disagree. I think a lot of this has to do with the public participation plan that Kim and staff have worked very hard on, and see if that would be a natural another possibility to add to how we do our public participation. People like committees, some people don't, but what's going to be effective. And I think to get to the broader picture, which Sarah often brings up, is how we engage with and get information out too, but also in conversation. But I think that's a bigger conversation than just establish this one model, which is a community app, a CAC, is that the model is going to actually get at the result that we want. I don't know. That's going to be a good question to ask. And I'm going to be looking to Kim for a lot of that. Here's some possibilities. Here's some models that work here. Here's some that don't. I've asked our community engagement, diversity engagement committee to start looking at neighborhood associations. Is that a relic? Does it work? I don't know. But those are things that we're trying to relook at how we do public participation, because the old models, clearly, if we're asking the question, they don't work, or not to the extent that we want. So just something that I'm looking forward to seeing what our some opportunities are to do things different.
So I know that we're in the middle of a motion. Do we want to talk about this right now, or do you want to finish the motion?
We're gonna finish, we're gonna call for the vote, and then we can, I think we've given enough conversation to Mike and Kim on what we're looking for in the future. But to this motion, any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, signify by saying no. Hearing no objection, motion passes unanimously.
Okay, and just so we're kind of tying a bow on the citizen group, I'll get together with my staff. We will put together something. I don't know if we'll have time to do it for the May meeting because Kim is taking some vacation time, but we will either do it in May or June, kind of so you can have a good discussion with information laid out in front of you about some pros and cons and what we're currently thinking for public participation and citizen involvement.
Right, more holistically. Okay. Thank you very much. That takes us to item G, the SCAS 2023-2050 MTP schedule update. Ray.
Okay, thank you. In your green item is a short memo with the schedule detailing some of the modifications to the update for the Metropolitan Transportation Plan that we had originally talked to you back in January. The schedule is getting revised for a couple of reasons. One is some data sources are not available that were supposed to be available by this time. Primarily the Census Bureau data from the 2020 census won't be available until later this year, and that has some ramifications. So we're going to go with the numbers that we have now and not deal with the lateness of their data. There's also the issue with from last month, we were talking about the criteria that we were proposing to use for project evaluation. And after that discussion, it was apparent that we need to have a longer discussion, not just on the criteria, but how they tie in with the federal regulations, the goals, and their uses within the MTP. So that will be next month. And then there's in June, I'm giving away your schedule for the next 2 months. We'll be getting all the TIP project presentations, and that will take at least an hour for you to hear the projects and discuss them. Next slide, please, Karen or Kim. So as part of this memo, I also asked a question because I was we've always, we've done something in the past, we might continue to do it, or maybe you guys want to do something differently. So previously, when we're updating the long range plan, we bring each chapter to the PC after going to the TAC, chapter by chapter, and some months you get multiple chapters. There's also the option, so that's option A. Option B is a policy-oriented discussion. So there are a number of chapters, and they're listed in your memo and on the screen, that are more policy-oriented, and while other chapters are more factual and just based on here's the existing system, here's a need analysis, here's the policies that exist that we conform to. So the option 2 would be we just bring the discussion on these chapters in the appendix to you guys for discussion. And if you're interested in the other chapters, those are always available on, or would be available online on the website, or we can mail them to you, or if you get the TAC mailings, as I know some of you do, they would be included. So that's a question for you to decide on. The last part, next slide, please. Thank you. So the other part of the scheduled thing is to bring up the other items that we're discussing in this year and need to have adopted. So the first one is the congestion management plan. We need to have that adopted before May 2023 as part of the corrective actions that were identified by the feds. most of you have not seen the CMP before, and so that will take a month or two to discuss why we're doing it and what it entails and what it's used for. Mike alluded to the federal performance measures, which are a very important part of the MTP and the TIP. And this year is a year that we need to set targets or either agreeing to support the targets from that are set by ODOT or the transit district, or set our own for an assortment of performance measures, from safety to reliability and congestion to bridge and pavement quality. And that will take a month or two to discuss, not the entire meeting, but, we'll have that as a discussion point because for most of you, this will be new. The second, third, and fourth bullets are the SCATS boundary. Once the Census Bureau releases their data in late summer, early fall, this boundary for the SCATS area, or for SCATS, may have to be enlarged. We don't know. The Census Bureau will define urban areas, and that will define where the MPO needs to go for the minimum area for the MPO. Usually, if there's a good turnout where the boundary does not expand, and this will be quick and easy. And there's the bad or the other scenario where the boundary gets bigger and we have to amend the cooperative agreement, and it takes 6 months or more. And we really don't know at this point how that's going to play out, unfortunately. And once that's done, we will be doing a review of the roads within that new boundary, functional classification, and then redefining the critical urban freight corridors. And I think Mayor Clark went through this at least last time, so once, and knows that it can take a couple months to discuss this, even if it's fairly straightforward and fairly technical. And I think that's it on my slides. So, yep. So that's the memo and why we are with the revised schedule, proposed schedule. To Sadie's point previously, we're trying to include, at least 2 months for public review next year, whether that includes 2 public hearings or 1, that's something for you guys to decide at a later date or closer towards it, how that works. And, I've highlighted a couple items on the schedule and italics that might slip. So the only one is really the boundaries, the financial projections are looking pretty good to be available on time. Excuse me. So hopefully we'll have no more unintended delays from external sources, and it will be smooth sailing from here on. And if you have any questions, please ask them now. Otherwise, I'd like to get your opinion or feedback on how you want to review the document going forward.
Okay, and I would also like to point out, while there are, scheduled hearings and so forth, as each chapter comes out, they are public documents, and people who want to submit comments or come to the SCATS Policy Committee can also give feedback as we are going through the process. So this isn't going to be like a one and done, but it's going to be iterative, and this is complex. Sadie.
Thank you, Chair Clark. So I think I'm tracking this right. The now MTP is the previous RTSP.
Yes.
Yay?
Yay.
Yes. And then the chapters, because I'm looking at the RTSP here on this screen, and I'm looking at my packet over here. And so are the chapters, do they line up? Is it a 1-for-1 conversion from RTSP to MTP?
They are exactly the same. The only thing changed between the RTSP and MTP is at the bottom where it says RTSP, that's been filed off and we put MTP. So
Okay.
as we go forward, there will be changes within the words or something of the document. For, the existing system, something changes. But the documents are exactly the same otherwise.
Okay. And then just, so the second option is, I'm trying to understand my options here.
So
Is the proposal that the policy committee review chapters 3, 6, 7, 9, and appendix C?
yes.
Okay.
Or you can review chapters 1 through 9 plus appendices A through wherever I got to, and an introduction and an executive summary.
I'm tempted to probably bite off more than I can chew, but I can't tell how long, looking at the table of contents, these different sections are, because they're just labeled like 1-1, 2-1, 3-1.
They're between 10 and 60 pages.
Okay. I think the executive summary, the intro, and maybe policy would be of interest to this group, but maybe I'm wrong. I have not dug into the contents of each chapter by chapter. I kind of go in and pick and choose what I'm looking for.
And to that point, that's why the review by the Technical Advisory Committee, the TAC, is very helpful. I know it is for me because I have a representative on there that if that individual has a question, we can discuss it before I come to the policy committee meeting. And Trevor has, a staff person, well, she's on here, Julie Warnicki, who's a walking encyclopedia of this information. That's supposed to be a compliment, Julie, just in case. So to that end, looking at the policy-oriented chapters, I think will be a good use of our time. So I've been through this a couple of 3 times, and I think that that's where we would be able to really lean in and have with a more robust conversations. If there's something that comes up in other chapters that we want to, that we have a question about, and our staff person brings that to us, then we can have that conversation. But I think I think Ray's suggestion here is based on experience with prior policy committees and would be a good use of our time.
Can I ask a dumb question? And that is, why would we leave out the chapter on policy?
Because it's policies that are. So I was doing things that you could actually influence. So the chapter on policy just lists, here are all the federal policies, here are all the state policies. It's nothing that, if you disagree with the Clean Water Act or the Clean Air Act, you can't.
That's a
change
different fight.
Sorry, yeah, that's a different.
A different meeting.
Different venue, different meeting, different staff.
Yeah, your input is more in the goals and the objectives in that chapter in chapter 3.
Okay, that's helpful in understanding. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, and all of us who do, like when I get the policies and so forth that I have to embed in the grants or the planning that we do where I work, the FAA just says, here you go. And they're not asking our opinion. Now, we can say we don't like it, and then we can turn down the federal money, and that's really not a good option. But yeah, they're not asking us. Maria.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm a little lost in the sense that if this is a physical document that we're looking at, and reviewing these chapters, I don't have it. Where can I access that?
Okay, well, so we're updating the document that's available on our website, and we can provide you a printed copy. So as we go along each month from, let's see, July onward, we'll take, if we went the chapter by chapter, we discuss, the first chapter, chapter 4, the existing system, that would be discussed at the TAC and then be brought to you guys for discussion at your meeting. A copy would be sent out with the changes that are proposed for that chapter. If we do the policy oriented, just those will be brought to you. But the The update is for modifying an existing document that's been updated since 2003 and was originally created in 1996. So it's a living document that is being, yes, that is the correct link that Sadie provided in the chat box for looking at the chapters. And I believe that the one online, well, it's all encompassing. We don't have it split out by chapter by chapter. When we do
Yes, we
the
do.
public outreach, there's we have a page, and we'll put each chapter on there for the public to look just at that chapter as we go forward.
Okay.
Duly
Thank
noted. Thank
you.
you, Sadie.
And then Maria, anything that you need on the current documents or the upcoming documents, whatever format you need, just let Mike know and Lori Moore, and they will get that to you. And I agree with putting the link into the agenda. Will be helpful for everybody looking for stuff.
So, quick question, how many people, well, if we put on a link, that works really well if you're a PDF user. And if you're using one of these old-fashioned things, some of our links, as you notice in the chat, are somewhat long and long. So would you prefer the links to be bit, shortened ones, or the complete long ones, or just
Whatever gets
that's
us there.
another,
Yeah,
you know,
I
whatever.
think,
Whatever gets us there.
I think what
Whatever
I,
works for you guys.
Yeah.
I think
well,
what I
let's-
suggest is we'll send an email out to the entire policy committee with a link to the RTSP, and we'll ask you the question if you want us to send you a printed version. Some people may want a printed version as well. So before we just send out printed versions, we'll ask you if you need it, because we only have so many limited copies printed right now. So Lori, we make a note of that we want to do that.
Maria, did you have anything else?
Yes, I will make a note of that. Currently, we actually are out of printed copies because they are quite expensive to print. So we only make as many as we need, and we used our last one a couple months ago.
Okay. But we're happy to print some new ones if you want,
Yeah,
but
we
we'll
can
send
do
a
that
link asking you,
anytime.
we'll send you a link asking you which you prefer.
Perfect.
Okay.
Maria, you good?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to Trevor, and then I'll circle back to Sadie and then Steve.
Yeah, this was just verification. I think I have the RTSP as a PDF. It's 396 pages on the PDF. Okay, yeah, I
The
found it.
one.
Bingo.
Yeah, but most of that's appendices.
Yep.
Woohoo!
Yep, that's the good reference stuff. All right, Sadie?
I was just gonna say, DAS guidance changes all the time for state agencies, but what we have done for staff reports in the past is to provide a link in the staff report and then with a footnote to the typed out URL for folks that are not accessing the document electronically. At least they know where to look and what it is. And so then they could make a further request of staff if necessary, but maybe that's a useful way to move forward.
Yep, that's perfect. Thank you.
Yep. Steve?
Today's package was like 173 pages, and now I hear that this document is 300 and some odd pages, and so on and so forth. And I guarantee you, I'm not going to read every page or try and understand every line. And so I'm going to rely on the team here to give us the highlights. And I just basically want to know what's changing and why. But it seems like if we keep trying to add this piece or this clarification in this paragraph, we're just muddying the water if we're moving along with the guidance from our team here. And I personally don't have time to study 362 pages or try and understand it. And so if we're just going to try and layer different pieces of information into something like this, do we have to do that? And is it just muddying the system to add different layers for whatever reason? Because if I don't know what the goal is by adding that, it's confusing to me. And like I say, I'm not gonna read every page, I guarantee it. I got the rest of my life too.
Well, I think that's where Ray's suggestion of really bringing us the policy-oriented chapters will have the presentation of the materials has been laid out, but the ones that we're going to dive into will be the chapters 3, 6, 7, 9, but we'll have access to all of the information and printed for those who want printed and links for those who want linked. So that's what I'm hearing is the direction to go. Maria, did you have another question?
Oh, sorry, I just forgot to put my hand down.
All right, not a problem. Okay, so Ray, Mike, Kim, do you have what you need on the schedule?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Then let's pop over to the survey results. Kim.
Okay, great. Thank you. Just to kind of recap the activity that we've done so far. So we launched a website, a SCAT-specific website for the kickoff of the TIP and the MTP. We're calling it, that's our ArcHub information site. That went up the first of March. We mailed, and as part of that outreach, as the kickoff of both of these projects beginning, we, for the first time, we haven't done this, but we mailed 20,000 postcards in the SCATS area. And those postcards went out the first week of March. What we did specifically with those postcards is we targeted at 40% of them, a little over 70, close to 7,500 of the 20,000, to be mailed specifically to neighborhoods that correlated with our environmental justice work that we've done in the past. So we targeted in the areas that had the highest concentration of low income residents and residents of color. So, and then the rest, the balance of those 20,000, we distributed in the SCATS area fairly equally by population. But so they were randomly sent in Kaiser, West Salem, South Salem, East and Northeast. And as I said, those went out about the second week of March. From that outreach, I was able to track and see that we had, and I'm looking at, we kept this, oh, I was going to say, on our hub, you got to the page, you could go ahead and take a look at an existing map that had our new applications for the TIP projects, and also go to what we've set up, a short survey to solicit opinion about transportation issues. So that was kind of that launch. The postcard was in Spanish and English, and then had a QR code you could scan and go straight to the website, or you could go ahead and type in the link to it. Our survey was open from, like I said, from the postcard mailed until April 8th. And so I tracked during that time that we had basically 400 unique visitors, 399, but people who came to the website to come and visit it. Of those, 224 came from the postcard. So they came either using the QR code predominantly. So that's a little over a 1% response rate just from the postcard. And of everyone who came to the website, we had 162 who completed the survey. And the survey we just focused on, we did six main questions. We didn't want people to be dismayed by having to answer too long of a survey. We wanted to kind of get their input and go ahead and move on. And our TIP map of projects is still currently up and live and on that website. And still you have an opportunity, the public does, to leave comments. So, so then I thought, let me go through and give you just the highlights of what these 6 questions are and their results. You have the full survey results are in your agenda packet. The first question was, what are your challenges that you face in day-to-day travel? And of this, we let respondents choose more than one. All of those that were applicable. And so what came back at the top of this list was basically unsafe walking conditions. So lack of sidewalks, street lights. And second to that, just overall traffic congestion. And you can see third, unsafe biking conditions. And that was, we had a little more description in the actual survey. So it would say lack of bike lanes or very close to a high traffic speed roadway. And we had cost of travel or lack and no convenient bus service that popped up. So I thought that this question, when it came up in the survey to each respondent, was randomized, so they didn't come up in that order. They would rotate, and that's kind of how those responses came out. Was interesting kind of see. Go ahead, and Karen, we can give our second question was, we asked people, how do you most often travel in the Salem Kaiser area? So not surprisingly, most people drive. That came back up at 84%, but we did have a number of people who indicated that they're biking. So we had 11% say that they were bikers and 3% saying that they took the bus. All right, Karen, give me this next question that we did is we wanted to kind of get a little more detail. So thinking specifically about transportation issues, what were the most important issues you'd like to have your local government leaders do something about? So we had 12 choices on this, and we let people choose up to 6. And so these were the ones that came up at the very top here. So the first one was at the highest response was to fix and build sidewalks and expand. The description was a little longer in the actual survey. Fix and build sidewalks and also expand and extend pedestrian walkways. And that came out at the top at 62% answered that was important. And then the next two are basically tied at 51%. So improve bike and safety, bicycle and pedestrian safety, and improve road conditions. Fourth was build more bicycle lanes. And then fifth, improve traffic conditions there. And then the sixth one is reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So just roughly, as we asked most of the respondents, we asked respondents to choose up to 6. The top 6, are good range of issues that people are concerned with here. And then farther down the list, so improve road safety, increase the bus frequency, expand the bus, build new roads. And our other category was open so that people could give their individual responses if they had something, a suggestion, which again is, you have the full information in your packet. I wasn't going to go over those individual ones just yet. And then we had our last one is establish a bike share. Right. And then this question, what we asked on this one was a little bit to get kind of at the gist of as beginning the MTP and looking at some of the criteria and some of the overall guidelines and goals that we have in that. We asked, what are your priorities for spending federal transportation dollars? And this question, we asked the respondent to rank them, the highest priority to the lowest priority. So the full descriptions of these that came out, I have a very short text at the bottom, but basically fix and maintain the existing roads, bridges, and sidewalks. And that came in as the highest priority. And then provide a multimodal system, increase bus, more sidewalks, more bike lanes. And the third one was address safety issues or locations. Fourth was reduce the impact to the environment. And then the fifth was address peak hour congestion. And what I'd like to just point out with this chart is that of these 5 priorities that we were asking people to rank, actually the result of this is that they were obviously all important to people, because there's not a lot of gradation between the one that was ranked the highest and the lowest when you look at an overall average. And that's because as people answered them, they may have just slightly indicated what was less or more important. But certainly fix, maintain the existing roads, bridges, and the sidewalk system did come in as the highest, as number 1. And then this one was, we wanted to put in a specific bike question. So this one was, what would encourage you to bike more often? So granted, and this question, we actually did leave these responses in an order because they're somewhat hierarchical, kind of with the idea that could we get people to bike more if the first choice was, what if we had wider protected bike lanes that were on high traffic streets? And so people did click that one. They responded to that. They thought that was a positive one. Building family-friendly bike routes on a low traffic street came in very high. And then protective crossings, as you can see, offering more bike parking, offering a bike share service that didn't get a particularly high response. And you can see on our previous question as well. And then this is we included this, and this is very typical we find in a lot of just national research. So, how many I don't own a bike was 12%. And then I don't plan on biking was actually a fairly high response of 33%. But although that's somewhat high, that's not out of bounds with other research that we've seen in other traditional biking. They're just simply a lot of people who are not going to get on a bike, and they're not going to commute. Doesn't matter how safe it is. Doesn't matter if you gave them a bike, they're just not going to get on a bike. So that's not out of the realm of the ordinary. And then we had a few people who answered with another choice as well. And then let's see, our last, so this is really the bread and butter of this survey. So then the open question is, what other comment do you have? Basically, what other comment do you have? And we got 100 on the nose, free form answers, which I've summarized and put in the agenda for you. And I went ahead and just grouped them in broad categories to make them a little bit easier to see in how the responses came through. So I lumped them by bike and ped responses. We had a group of people who were answering and talking about building a third bridge, general roadway or general concerns, a little set of data about or feedback about a light rail or a tram system, greenhouse gas in the environment, and then also transportation from the transit district. So I grouped them in general categories. There's a range of responses. I will say that they're very fascinating to read, and I encourage you, if you've got time, to take a look, because we had the range of experiences of people, and we had the range of feedback about what was important. So it's always very beneficial to kind of find that. And I will also point out that one of the things that was somewhat gratifying to see in this is that we had a range of individual and unique answers. We have done on occasion a survey before, and we can have a lot of people copying and pasting, but we had very little of that. These were actually answers that I think were coming from people who wanted to tell us what they were thinking one way or the other. And then finally, I think our last question we wanted to just see, so those who answered the survey, was just where do you live? And so we did find that it was a pretty well-distributed response. We had a good response from kind of different neighborhoods, and we did, if we look at the central sort of East Salem and Northeast Salem area, that's 17% and 7% that answered. And those are the areas that we did try to target by doing a specific extra mailing, basically from our postcard to those locations. So in a quick summary, that was the main questions that we went through and kind of answered. And that's kind of the overview of round one, we should say.
Thank you, Kim. This is really, it was fascinating to read the comments and so forth. And I was one of the people who got one of the postcards, so I did it from there. My question is on this last one, the population, distribution, and then the responses. That would be a very interesting comparison. I don't know if that's a doable thing.
Yeah, and what I did is we only asked for that zip code really when they finished the survey. So the other way of tracking that I was trying to get hits was really more about the method that they came to the website, because we did also use email and Facebook and elsewhere in the postcard. So I think that it's an excellent, we will continue to expand our our tracking, because it is very useful to see. But at least it was nice to kind of see at least people who answered the survey went ahead and gave us their zip code. And I will say I had, out of the survey, 60 people gave me their email address to be added to an interested party's email list. They'd like to know what's going on going forward. So I thought that was a good chunk of people who were interested in learning more as well.
Yeah, this is very interesting. Mike, you had something?
Yeah, just my own observations. One, this is the first time we tried it, so I think it's been fairly successful. In the past, we've done things for the tip where we asked people to comment on the projects. That's the other half of this postcard survey. We got people to the ArcHub website, and they can go in and they can respond to the projects in the draft tip, whether they like them or not. So it was a dual function. The other thing is 20,000 postcards. So we got some exposure about who we are. So we didn't have a huge rate of return. I wasn't expecting anything. I was, 1 or 2% is what I kind of expected. But think of it, we got responses from 160 people. Try to get 160 people to show up to one of our events and give detailed feedback on what's your priorities and what are your challenges and how should we spend our funds. And this is so much more than we usually get for public involvement on a regional plan. So I think it was successful from many aspects, but for the policy committee, gives you a chance to consider the answers that people gave you as we're developing the long range plan. So I want to just say
And I will add that,
thoughts.
as Mike said, that currently the tip map is still up and open. We're collecting those comments. We have over 100 comments that are on the tip map as well that we're still gathering. We will bring format and bring to the policy committee at the point that you're looking at those tip projects when they go forward. So that also that's a robust amount of comments that we're getting.
Well, and to the point earlier, what we were discussing about a citizen advisory committee, people who have the time or are comfortable in a committee will self-select. But you made this really palatable. As I went through the survey, it was inviting and it was not intimidating to be able to participate. And I really appreciated feeling that it was a way that my voice could be heard without having to feel like an expert. So I think this is a great tool to go along with. And that's why I was partly was indelicately saying earlier is that there are different ways in which we can engage people. And I really appreciated trying this and, see what we can do to learn from it and expand. So appreciate that. Maria.
I am interested in knowing when you say that the postcards were sent with an emphasis on those EJ areas, I guess do you have like an idea of so of the 20,000 postcards or 20,000 households that were targeted, what percentage were focused on the EJ areas?
40%.
40%, okay.
We sent 20,000 postcards. We sent 7,500 to the EJ areas.
Yeah, I'm just really interested in, I do appreciate that overall, East Salem, I think is represented with about 27 total % of the response rate. So if we grouped it together, it definitely is the largest response. But I am, I guess, concerned about the outreach or the turnout rate. I guess more the response rate of those areas, just because living in Northeast Salem, and not saying that the postcard system is perfect, but I don't recall seeing the postcard at all, and I'm just interested in how we can further engage those EJ areas, because I feel like this sort of work is really beneficial for them. And then the other piece that I was wondering about is, do we have a tangible explanation of how this survey is going to inform our work or the work?
Well, certainly we bring when we receive comments, when we're working with the public, we bring all of the comments and the results certainly to the policy committee. And so as you're going forward and you'll be discussing, for example, in the coming months, the prioritization of projects, the criteria that's going forward, it's certainly, it's within your purview, right, as the policy committee to take into account the comments and the voices that you've heard in the evolution and the review of what the policy chapters are, particularly for the MTP. And then for the TIP projects, we'll be bringing forward the projects that are those TIP. Right now, there's 17 projects that have been, applied for. It will fall to the policy committee to choose which ones wind up being funded. And we'll bring those comments that are TIP specific to the policy committee and see what the public comment has been about those.
Thank you.
Does that help?
Yeah, that is helpful.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if maybe at some point we could also see that bike and bus intersection, because I'm wondering how many of those folks that are saying that they wouldn't bike would bike if they had the accessibility to bike to a bus stop and then ride the bus or something like that, which again, that's probably a little further out than we would like to get, but
right.
also if there's a way to maybe collaborate or have some input on how to make that outreach for the EJ areas, because I know that they are definitely hard to reach. And I mean, in my day job, we've specifically taken on contracts to try and support that outreach due to how difficult it is to access them.
Yes.
So just would be interested in
Yeah.
if there's some way that I could offer support or ideas in any way.
Absolutely, because we are always looking to improve. And I will I would say that, I mean, it is gratifying to get response, at least get response like this. As Mike was saying, I remember years ago, you know, we were happy when we got 2.5 comments. And so it's very gratifying to see kind of a bulk of comment and real testimony that's coming back and being able. And I will say, just, you know, at the beginning of when the pandemic hit in March of 2020, whatever year that was.
2020.
That was right when the tip was going to the public comment period. And we did shift to actually creating a kind of online, you know, an online open house. And same thing, that we found that very helpful, because it kind of did a quick overview. What is the, you know, start from basics. What is the tip? Why does it matter to me, right? How much money is there? And then we kind of went to a map and said, here's where we're at, you know, give us your comment, give us your feedback. And we found that it was very, very promising to find that kind of response that came through a mechanism like that. We will plan on completely doing the same again as we go forward for public comment period at the beginning of 2023 for both the TIP and the long range plan. And so we're always looking what we can find that will be useful and helpful is, I think, really valuable. Thank you.
Okay. We're bumping up against 2 o'clock, and a lot of people are going to have to, including me, are going to have to jump to next thing. So let's go to item I, which is Salem Area Mass Transit upcoming FTA competitive grant requests. And Alan and Mike, this was in the packet, and we're looking for Policy Advisory Committee to authorize staff to provide future letters for supporting these grants.
That's correct, Chair. So on the screen, I gave you a very quick summary of the funding and policy requests, that list that I got from Transit, and Director Pollock is here to expand on that.
Great.
Yeah.
I am still here. Yes.
Thank you for sticking around.
Sure. Chair Clark, members of the Policy Committee. I'm Alan Pollock, General Manager for Chariots. So yeah, the intent of today's action is to be a little proactive. Each year our board adopts a federal and state legislative agenda. And part of the federal agenda are potential projects that we would submit applications for under the Federal Transit Administration discretionary grant programs. And then typically those request letters of support from partnering agencies. And previously we've been doing those piecemeal as they come up, but in talking with Mike, we thought it'd be a good idea to do a blanket request one time instead of playing catch up with these, so that we could just call on staff who had previously been approved to submit those letters on your behalf. And so you can see that the top 3 items here are upcoming grant applications we are considering through the upcoming fiscal year 22-23 application program. So they're there. If there's any questions on the particular projects, I'd be happy to answer them. And these are kind of in conjunction with the ones that you've supported in the past, especially our ongoing low and no emission, the electric bus grants that we will likely do again this year as well. So if you see to approve this list, we'd like to add the low no electric bus application as they come up as well. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Alan. Any questions on this list and the +1 of the electric bus? It's a fabulous list. I love this idea of getting ahead of this because the turnaround can be rather tight.
Mhm,
And we
yeah.
want to make sure that we bring as many federal dollars here as possible because we know how to use them. Trevor.
I like this list a lot. This will help South Salem where I'm elected to serve quite a bit. The Kubler link is very much needed. And I look forward to someday having a transit facility here in South Salem as well. So just very complimentary, happy with the list.
All right.
Great. So Chair,
So-
can we get a motion to, on the action requested to authorize staff to provide future letters of support?
For the
So
grant?
moved.
Moved by Trevor,
Second.
seconded by, that's Lyle. Correct? Any further discussion? And this is the list with the +1.
Correct.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Heard 3,
Aye.
4. There we go. Do we still have a quorum? We've had 2 jump. And we were missing 1. So we're down,
Help me out, staff. Do we have a quorum here?
we have, because Steve had to jump. No, yeah.
You have a quorum with 4.
All right, we've got 4. All
We
right.
have a quorum.
Because we have Maria, Lyle, Trevor, me. That's 4.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it. Okay, OTC decision on the IIJA flex funds. And that
Yeah,
was included.
I'm going to try to be quick about this too. So you've heard me talk about the IIJA funds. Here is the list of the flexible funds of the $412 million that we spent a lot of time discussing. And here is their decision. I think the one thing that might be a little bit off is the one in the middle called Innovative Mobility Pilot. I think they were trying to maybe boost that up either as part of the 412 or find other funds. So I think that's going to go up a little bit, potentially at the expense of the ADA. So this was the initial staff request. So, but essentially this is their breakdown of how much is going to enhance highway, fix it, great streets. And the good news is for the enhanced highway, their focus is going to be on 2 projects. One is the Aurora Donald interchange, and the other one is US 97 north of Bend. So they won't take action about that formally for probably a couple months, but as staff develop, sharpens their pencils and gets all the details done. Next slide. And then for completeness, this is the other $960 million the state received. You can see a lot of these programs are going to local jurisdictions, so like local bridge, MPO. A lot of these grants will be on local projects like the All Roads Transportation Safety, which is the arts program. It's getting an additional $67 million. So this is just the distribution of funds. A lot of new programs for ODOT to work through and distribute funds throughout the state. So unless there's any questions, I always just want to make this a quick item for your information.
And thank you, Mike, for your amazing work on helping us keep track of when to jump in and testify. Totally appreciate that. A lot of voices from this region for the Aurora Donald interchange to build it one and done or close to it. I mean, 1A is under construction, but to get that done is going to save lives. So very much appreciate the work on that.
I just
Okay,
like to
that's
second that too, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fantastic work. Tip modifications, Karen.
This is just real quick. Most of these are the ones that you approved last month. The one I'd like to highlight maybe is number 6. This is the MPO, the UPWP money, basically. And there was just an amendment to roll over last year's funds that we didn't spend into this year, which is what that is. If there's any questions on any of these, I'd be happy to answer them.
All right. Any questions on any of the tip modifications? These are all moving forward. I'm looking forward to actually Dearborn, Verta Lane, going to construction. So that can't happen soon enough. But I guess they have to finish engineering it first, whatever it takes, just build it. All right, other business. Our next meeting will be on May 24th. The TAC will meet on May 10th. And the OTC will meet on May 12th in Florence. And of course, they're still going to continue to show virtual meetings as well, so people can participate remotely. Is there anything else? Let's see, looking
I'm
at
muted.
this.
Chair, I was looking at the OTC calendar yesterday. There's confusion on where they're meeting because I know this, our agenda packet said Florence, but the website said Salem Convention Center. So I don't know.
There's a little bit of a difference there.
It is a difference. So we'll have to figure that out. But and just to be complete, the packet had the OMPOC letter to the Oregon congressional and state elected leaders on the railroad issue. So basically, it's a list of issues and problems coordinating with railroads and a number of issues and projects. It's a historical problem because of their autonomy. So it's really asking our congressional and state elected officials to try to develop solutions for enhancing that collaboration, and also this issue about yearly maintenance fees that Marion County brought up about crossings and the railroads wanting to impact maintenance fees to local governments for these crossings. I don't know a lot about that issue, but it was something the county brought up. So that letter is in your packet. And it did engender some discussion, definitely with ODOT rail staff, as you recall, Chair Clark. And I think other people were there, maybe Lyle Morehorst, Commissioner Morehorst was there that day, to really, try to get that communication better and get better responses from the railroad, which has long been a sore point. So
A little bit. They are not easy to work with. We need them to be better partners, and they haven't felt the need to reciprocate. So yeah, we need to keep pushing on that one. Makes it really hard to have a relationship when they say, yeah, give us the money and you can't tell us what to do. I don't think so. So thank you for that letter. That's very helpful to remind us where we're at with rail, and we'll keep pushing. We're becoming much more efficient and effective at communicating our needs to our congressional delegation, and to keep pushing on this one. All right, we have reached actually just past the top of the hour. Is there anything else we need for the good of the order? All right, we are good. It is 2:03. We are adjourned. Thank you all very much.
thank you.